we are going to go ahead and get started. I think we'll be joined by a couple more folks. But I want to talk, Lucas already got the pre-apology. So one of the things I'll say, like, this is the first time I've taught through this material with this specific, like, time constraint. So one thing that we're going to change up from last time, because I really, I wish I had gotten through some more stuff. And you may have noticed that as you went home, and you may have thought, righteously, by the way, you may have thought, like, he should have covered this. And you're right, just so you know. Okay, seriously, I'm dead serious. I'm not overly harsh on myself about it. Hey, Dr. Hutchison. Come on. So anyway, so one of the big ways, and this pains me to say, but we have to be prudent with our time. We're not gonna keep going through like Romans one verse at a time as we go. I am gonna ask you, if you would, to add this verse. This is actually a stitch together of two verses from Luke 18, 16? I apologize. I'm not totally sure. But anyway, there are two incidents with Jesus where folks, blind and cripple, yes, call out to Jesus. And so I've stitched them together here. One of them actually says, "Lord, Son of David, have mercy on me, a sinner." The second one, interestingly, so there's a cool little bit of Hebrew poetry going on. The second one says, "Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me." And often you'll see this in like Hebrew poetry where you'll have two like parallel lines that kind of redefine and give character to each other. So like sometimes that's what's called antithetical or opposite, where Jacob I have loved, Esau I have hated. But sometimes it'll be like, "The Lord has mercy on Zion, he is close to his holy city," or something like that. So you'll see like a redefinition of, Zion and holy city or things like that, or loves and is close to. Anyway, so I stitched it together. This is not a verse. You won't be able to find this verse, and yet I think it's very true to the verse, the two verses, so to speak. So it just says this, and when we finish up our recitation tonight, I'll invite you don't have to. Don't feel too odd if I do, though. I invite you to pray with me, and if you are so inclined, to kneel as you pray. I've been really convicted by too many people who are wiser than me over the years that we are people who live in bodies, and so what we do with our bodies matters. So again, I hope you won't feel too odd if I kneel, and I won't feel odd if you don't, or if you do, or whatever it is. So anyway, this passage just says Jesus, and we'll talk about tonight what's going on with this passage, which is really cool. Jesus, and then we have what's called an appositive, which you just put it right next to it. Jesus, Son of David. The word David doesn't do what we're going to see nouns do tonight. Have mercy on me. And if you ever, y'all grew up, mostly you grew up in the 80s and the 90s, and there was a Christian song, Kyrie eleison. Do you remember the song? Mark Schultz did a cover of it that I remember being, Kyrie eleison, if you know this song, I won't do that again. I'm going to try to keep the singing to a minimum here tonight. But anyway, so this is that. It's from earlier in the verse there where he says kurios or kurie in the vocative, which we'll talk about tonight. So there's eleison, and then may, have mercy on me. We usually add like on. We wouldn't say mercy me, although that's a band, but no more music tonight. Okay, have mercy on me, and then we have another appositive, me. Everybody know what that is? Amartalon. Who am I? Who is me? Have mercy on me. A sinner. There it is. Good. So both broken folks in there identify Jesus as Lord, Son of David, and identify themselves as being broken sinners in need of mercy. So I invite you to write that, scribe that at the end of your recitation if you'd like. You can join me in prayer at the end. If you would, though, stand with me. Let us recite together our recitation. All right. Here we go. If you did not reprint this off, I did add the word feminine to this first column. So it says first declension feminine. If you didn't and again, no shame. No. He's shaming them to start their time. No. So anyway, so that first column will just go first declension feminine, pure alpha. Okay, here we go. What is the declension of hehora? First declension feminine, pure alpha, rho or vowel, hora, horas, hora, horan, hora. Horai, horon, horais, horas, horai. Lovely. What's the declension of he phone? First declension feminine, pure eta. Phone, phones, phone, phonane, phone, phoni, phonon, phonice, phonus, phoni. What's the declension of he doxa? First declension feminine, mixed. Doxa, doxase, doxe, doxon, doxa. Doxai, doxone, doxice, doxus, doxai. What's the declension of hapraphetes? First declension masculine. Prophetes, prophetu, prophete, prophetane, propheta. Propheti, prophetone, prophetis, prophetus, propheta. What is the declension of halagos? Second declension masculine. Logos, logu, logo, logon, loge. Logoi, logon, logois, logus, logoi. Lovely. What's the declension of ta ergon? Second declension neuter. Ergon, ergu, ergo, ergon, ergon. Erga, ergon, ergois, erga, erga. What is the declension of ha-archon, archontos? Third declension, masculine, feminine. Archon, archontos, archonti, archonta, archon. Archontes, archonton, arcusi, archontus, archontes. What is the declension of tasoma, somatos? Third declension, neuter. Soma, somatos, somati, soma, soma. Somata, somaton, somasi, somata, somata. What's the declension of ha, he, ta? Ha, tu, to, ton. Hoi, tone, tois, tus. He, tace, te, tain. High, tone, tice, tus. Ta, tu, to, ta. Ta, tone, tois, ta. What is the declension of ego, su? First and second person pronouns. Ego, and mu, and moi, and me. He mace, he moan, he mean, he mus. Su, soy, sa. Who mace, who moan, who mean, who mus. What are the principal parts of luo? Luo, luso, elusa, leluca, lelumai, eluthane. What is the conjugation of luo in the present active indicative? Luo, lues, lue, luamen, luete, luusi. Infinitive, luane. Halfway down, ladies and gents. All right. What is the conjugation of luo in the present middle passive indicative? Luamai, lue, luetai, luametha, luesthe, luontai. Infinitive, luesthai. What is the conjugation of ami in the present indicative? Ami, esti, esmen, este, aisi. What's the conjugation of luo in the imperfect active indicative? Eluon, elues, elue, eluamen, eluete, eluon. What's the conjugation of luo in the imperfect middle passive indicative? Eluamen, eluu, eluita, eluametha, eluesthe, eluanta. What's the conjugation of ami in the imperfect indicative? Amen, ace, ain, amen, ate, ason. What's the conjugation of luo in the future active indicative? Luso, luces, luce, lusamen, lusete, lususi, infinitive, lusane. What's the conjugation of luo in the future middle indicative? Lusamai, luce, lusatai, lusametha, lusisthe, lusantai. Infinitive, lusisthai. What's the conjugation of ami in the future indicative? Esomai, esse, estai, esametha, esesthe, esontai. What's the conjugation of luo in the first aorist active indicative? Elusa, elusas, eluse, elusamen, elusite, elusun. Infinitive, lusai. Y'all sound so good. You really sound good. Number 2, second session. Here we go. What's the conjugation of luo in the first aorist middle indicative? Elusamen, eluso, elusita, elusametha, elusisthe, elusanta. Infinitive, lusisthai. What's the conjugation of lumbono in the second aorist active indicative? Elabon, elabes, elabe, elabamen, elabete, elabon. Infinitive, labane. Good accent. What's the conjugation of lumbono in the second aorist middle indicative? Elabamane, elabu, elabata, elabametha, elabisthe, elabanta. Infinitive, labesthai. What's the conjugation of luo in the perfect active indicative? Leluca, lelucase, leluke, lelucamen, lelucate, lelucasi. Infinitive, lelucanai. What's the conjugation of luo in the perfect middle passive indicative? Lelumai, lelusai, lelutai, lelumetha, lelusthe, leluntai. Infinitive, lelusthai. What's the conjugation of luo in the pluperfect active indicative? Elelucane, elelucase, eleluke, elelucamen, elelucete, elelucason. What's the conjugation of luo in the aorist passive indicative? Eluthane, eluthes, eluthe, eluthemen, eluthete, elutheson. Infinitive, luthani. What's the conjugation of luo in the future passive indicative? Luthesamai, luthese, luthesatai, luthesametha, luthesisthe, luthesantai. All right, pray with me if you would. Yesu huye David eleison me hamartalan. Would you say it with me? Yesu huye David eleison me hamartalan. Excellent. Take a seat if you would. All right. So we're going to start off this time just by going over the homework. And again, this is a great opportunity to call out my sins and failures as a teacher from last time. What did you notice that we didn't go over last time? Or just what questions did you have as you were doing your exercises, or even as you saw like the answer key, anything at all? Yeah. Great question. That was one of the things that's so funny, and it hit me as I was teaching this to my high schoolers, and we had done the first 4 in class, so I didn't even think, like, oh, that's enough to hit the 4 punctuation marks in Greek. So, great. So let's talk about punctuation marks as far as what they communicate. So we'll just start with practice and review. We notice maybe in the first 2 sentences, what is the only punctuation mark we have? Just a period. And that works like an English period, right? It's a nice, and what does an English period do? What does it tell us? Long pause. It tells us we have a thought. The Latin word for thought is sententia. Sentence. Okay? So that's what that is. It's the same thing in English. This is just a long pause mark, and it shows us we have a complete, what's that called? Not indicative. Declarative thought. Actually, it could be an imperative, so I'll just put complete thought. Could be a couple of things. Okay. All right. Then we came on to number 3, and you see another mark. What do we have in number 3? Good. We have the Greek equivalent of a colon. Oh, sorry, I'll do this like first grade style. There you go. So we have a colon. Now, this is something I did not learn until I had to teach kids to write. Okay, so please never assume that I'm asking this like, oh, well, I got this when I was growing up. I never knew how to use this thing right here. This is a semicolon mark. What does a semicolon mean? Okay, but can I use that for any 2 independent clauses?
They have to be connected grammatically.
Okay, good. So these have complete thought on either side. So we could say this way, 2 related complete thoughts. And that'll be important as we begin to translate that what we've got on either side. So to illustrate this, what you're saying is, I couldn't say, for example, I have a dog, semicolon, or middle mark. Ice cream's great. Right, those are not related. I mean, maybe in like a first grade classroom, those are related, right? Testify. Okay, but no, those are not. And I never knew that, and so I avoided that mark like it was the plague.
Well, they're both great.
They are, oh golly. Don't be that student. I can find some way to join those together. No. Yeah, see, there you go. There you go. Okay, so then we come to number 4. So that was what we had to get through our marks. So number 4, what's the next punctuation mark we see?
Question mark.
Ah, good. It is an interrogative. It's a question mark. It does. It does. So this is there, again, question mark, or you could just call it an interrogative mark if you don't want to be confused. Say again? Why do you have to be so English-centric?
Why they?
Those Greeks. Are you though?
I am.
All right, fair enough. I bet so. I bet so. I bet so. Were there any other punctuation marks that you saw?
I'm sorry, so there's what we call a semicolon in Greek is actually a question mark.
Good. That's right. That's exactly right. That's right. Oops, sorry.
I just had let me ask a question.
Please.
So for 5, the translation says it has both of the verbs as third person plural, I think, in the translation. That's instead of as one in third person.
Good. So I just had a mistake.
Yeah.
So it should have been, sorry, forgive me. That is what happens then at the end of the day. I was like, I really want to get out an answer key to people. Haste makes waste, young habits. Haste makes waste. Good. So it should say, they destroy and we do not wish to see. Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Good. So in the New Testament section, they have a comma. That is just like the English comma. Again, just to make it more difficult, some of them overlap, right? Some of them do not. So this is, what's a comma for? Short pause, that's it. And again, the list of those things is just like it is in English, where you might have, for example, Jesus, comma, son of David, comma, have mercy on me, comma, sinner. Those are called appositive phrases that the comma sets off. It could also be like subsequent clauses, like I went to the store, comma, bought some food. Although I want to be careful how I say this. I'm trying to think if Greek will usually stick a conjunction in there somewhere. I feel like it will. My spider sense is telling me it will. Yeah. Yeah. So if you go back to the first century manuscripts we have, which are not many, by the way, they're not many, but they're like kind of little scraps of papyrus. It's really cool though. I mean, it's amazing to see that we have them. But Those are all lowercase. It's been a while since I've looked at them. I'd have to look. Let me look at it, and I'll give you an answer. I know we also have all uppercase manuscripts called unsealed manuscripts. Yeah, it's a strange world once you get into manuscript tradition. So I'd have to look at that. Let me not speak recklessly. Other questions or, yeah? Context, yeah. Is that your question too?
No.
Oh, go ahead. What do you have?
He said that the major clause, not the period, but he said it was similar to our colon or semicolon, which in my brain, I guess I'm a little bit of a dissector.
Are you scientist? I see.
Shocker. Those are two slightly different things.
Sure.
Therefore, I'm like, well, how would you?
Yeah.
How would you differentiate those? Or would you just take it from context?
That's a good question. I think what you know going into it is strong break, independent clauses. Then what you have to figure out, kind of like Lucas's question on haughty, do I have a that, for example, that's often introducing what's called indirect speech. In Latin grammar, it's called indirect speech. In Greek, it's just an objective clause of speech. For example, like, we believe that he is good. So I always think of it like comics. If you ever like Peanut comics, right? And like that would be in a thought bubble in a Peanuts comic, right? He is good. And like, we believe that he is good. That's kind of what they're thinking. So haughty can introduce that kind of objective clause of like thought or speech. It can also introduce what's called a grounding clause. So if you've ever taught logic, or again, just like what's a ground for an argument? The grounds on which you argue. Because. Yeah, the basis of it. So, for example, because the Father told Jesus he is his beloved Son, Jesus knows his identity and can go out into the wilderness. I think that's kind of how that narrative works, if that makes sense. So logically, we call that a grounds clause or a grounding clause. Either one, that's fine. Because. Can you think of other adverbs in English? Since. How about the John 3:16 one? Yeah, for or therefore, good. Right, and the classic, I don't know if you've ever heard this in sermons. I grew up in like real simple, humble Baptist churches in Texas where they say, whenever you see a therefore, you got to ask what it's there for, right? So, and that's actually really good like logic, right? Whenever you see this kind of a clause, you should ask, how is it related to the clause that it's in relationship with, right? Because God so loved the world, he sent his Son. That's how that works. Why did he send him? Because of his love. Okay. Anyway, things like that. So, yeah, context is going to be the king there, for sure, for sure. Other questions, comments, mistakes? Again, I'm not above mistakes, as you've already seen. Yes. Okay. Okay, good. Which of those is English? Okay, good. But what would we... Good. And that's exactly right. So when we bring, many times in English, if we're going to ask a question, I don't know of an exception. See if you can, I always like to think of rules in English because I never was taught rules. But can you ask a question without the helping verb do? Like even if you use like an interrogative adverb, like where do you live? There's do. Like, can you ask a question in English without do? Exactly, okay. But you see what I'm saying? So in English, we need that helper to come in and kind of to help, right? To help that verb. Will you? Can you? Okay, good. Okay, so now my rule has been broken. Good. So what could my rule be? Will you help? Can you help? Okay. Okay, good. So maybe it's something like you need some kind of a helper. Now that could be a modal helper, like Might you go to the store or something like that? But yeah, I think, okay, maybe our rule is you couldn't just have the main verb. Love you? You love, can you love, will you love, should you love? Good, so yeah, we need some kind of a helper in there. In Greek, to your observation, the big so what is, you don't need it. And so we have to add it. One really annoying thing to me when I was learning Greek in college, I cannot tell you how many times I missed sentences because there was no mark that it was an interrogative until you got to the end. And if you did not notice it, stink. There was no adverb to help you. So for example, what I'm talking about is like Septuagint number 1, pou esten abel, right? Where is able? That one we've got that nice strong adverb up front to let us know like, this is a question. But in Greek, you do not have to have any kind of a mark. It's one thing I really appreciate about Spanish grammar. How does Spanish help you? The upside down question mark, right? So one thing I love about Spanish grammar is that. Like I never am going to make this mistake in Spanish. Latin, similarly, will always put some kind of an interrogative mark up front. Not a question mark, but like a word up front that shows you, hey, you got a question coming up. Greek doesn't. And so you really have to attend to that end mark coming up. And if you miss that one, that's what I would call a good miss. It's like, dadgummit, I didn't see that little mark. And that's okay. Anything else? Yeah.
Is it possible in Septuagint 4 and 5 that the root appears?
It does appear. Good. Good. It appears on ecusine, right? And blepusine, and ecusine, and acusine. Yep, they all take it. Good question. Now, what is the movable new?
It seems to be added randomly for like acoustic effects. It's kind of like the root not like if it comes up to a vowel.
Good.
But then sometimes it's random. Like
Good. That's what's hard about it. So in first, I'll just highlight like the recitation piece, and you'll see these once you have eyes to see that there are these news at the end of certain verbs, and you're exactly right to say, well, sometimes it seems to be like an a crocodile and alligator thing, but actually just look at that one number 4, the Septuagint, the LXX, the 70. So for example, the first one, ecusine ophthalmos. Now, is that one followed by a vowel? Is that verb followed by a vowel so it takes a movable new? Yes. Okay, let's go to the next one. Blepane, kai u, blepusine, kai. How about that one? Nope, kai is what's next. And we've already broken our rule with 2 examples, right? And so that's what's hard about it. So for us, I always feel like there are 2 things I want to say here. I think it's always really important that you do your English to blank exercises. That kind of works your brain in the other direction. It's like, you wouldn't just want to work your bicep, you would want to work your tricep, right? You want to work both sides, okay? The English to Greek, though, is not important because your goal is to write letters in Greek to the churches in Corinth, right? So if I could put it this way, the main muscle we want to develop is our reading muscle. Why? Why do we want to develop our reading muscle? So we can read what? That's right. It's not any more complicated than that, honestly. This is always the brutal, hard, simple answer of like, why learn Latin? So you can read things written in Latin. Why read Greek? So you can read things written in Greek. And now then we get into like, and now my soul is formed, and yes, absolutely. But that's kind of it. It's like, why learn English? So I can talk to people who know English, living or dead. Why do you learn Greek? Same kind of thing. But I'd rather talk to the dead, especially when it's like Paul and Jesus and those folks, right? Great question. So movable new. It doesn't. Good question. Good. Okay. Can anybody in looking over your exercises find how Greek, at least the way it's laid out in our Bibles, the Septuagint or the New Testament, can anybody find how Greek tells you you've got a quote from your examples? Ending. That's it. Good. So number 1 in the Septuagint, where does the quote start? Good. So we have one at the beginning. Where is Abel, your brother? You see the other one? Uginosko. Yeah. Anybody else see any quotes? And I was good. Good. And he says to him, good. That's fine. That's fine. This is how teachers think. Darn it, I don't want to be that student.
Sorry, the answer key said, and he said to him.
It's wrong.
Is that
It's wrong, yeah. This is actually what's called a historical present. Never mind. It's not a justification. I was wrong. Yeah.
Okay.
It's hard. A lot of times when you read Latin and Greek, they'll put things in the present tense
I know
that,
sometimes Paul did
yeah, that he does. Yeah. So anyway, so we call it a historical present, which is a way to have our cake and eat it too. But probably it's the writer emphasizing it. So actually, I did that on one of them where I underlined and bolded and italicized the I. I don't know how else to bring that through into English.
That's because it's in the subject is in the word, right?
That's right. That's right. So he's emphasizing the I. Yeah. It could be other things if it was poetry, but it's not. So anyway. Yes. Yes. Okay, we're going to talk about that today. Good.
But I was going to ask you said it's a plural tridical, but you said I hear and I speak.
Yeah, so I just made that a compound verb off of I. I could have reiterated the subject. I see and I hear. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like I walk and talk? You could do it either way. It's totally fine. Yeah, that's right. It doesn't. It doesn't. And we're going to, although I will say this about word order, and we're going to go to English and Greek now for a second. I'll say this rule about word order to start our time, and we're going to come to this full circle tonight. Don't change clausal order unless you have a reason to do it. So for us, right now, I'll just say this. Keep verbs in the order they're given in. Did I break that right there?
No.
Okay. So keep it in the order they're given in. Unless, as your like spider senses increase and improve, you're like, oh, something's going on here. And there will be that day, if you keep up with it, where you just go, ooh, 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 this is really weird. Like, oh, we just changed something up here. That's probably not today. It's not this week. Not yet. Okay. So let's look at the English to Greek, and we're going to talk about accenting rules. Now, this is not the most thrilling part of Greek. I'm going to just let you know. There are many things that are much more interesting, but for those of you with very analytical minds, you will enjoy this quite a bit. For those of you who are like, can I just read philosophy and not analyze anything? This will be a little painful. The good news is it doesn't make a huge difference most of the time, but when it does, it does. Okay? So we're going to talk a little about accent in Greek, and then we're going to talk about nouns, and we're going to come back to accents again, and we'll come full circle. All right. We're going to start off with just accents in general, and then we're going to talk about verb accents. Okay? So Greek has 3 accents. And I'm going to use 3 colors. That's not accidental. All right. The first accent we're going to talk about is the acute, pardon me. The acute accent is kind of what you're used to if you've learned like Spanish or something. In the acute accent, this is going to get strange, here we go. The acute accent could fall on any of the last 3 syllables of a word. So when we accent, and this is true in Latin as well, when you accent, you're always reading a word backwards and forwards simultaneously. It's kind of a mind bender, but we're going to talk about Greek accents. So we need to give a name to these. The last syllable in a word is called the ultima. Like you just think like ultimate. For example, the last person who walks in a parade is called the ultimus, the final one. Okay, the ultimate fighter. Whatever. All right, the almost last one. So Florida's not an island. We were talking about Florida earlier. What is Florida called? An almost island. From the Latin word pine, which means almost. So it's kind of fun. The not last but almost last is called the penult. Literally almost last. Then there's a Latin word, and again, we live in the South, so I expect a correct answer on this. What do you call the period in the South before the Civil War? Antebellum, before the war. Well, the syllable before the almost last syllable is called the antepenult. Literally before the almost last. By the way, this is something, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a mathematician, besides just being a poor one. It's one of the things that always struck me about maths is like, if we just told kids what the words mean, they would be in a much better place. Like words like dividend, that's just Latin for it needs to be divided. That's literally what the word means. An addend, it needs to be put together is what that would translate as. A radius means a spoke, like a bike spoke. A diameter is a Greek word. It means measure through. And there is a point in me, sometimes I think like, it's been a couple of years since I've taught math, but I was like, maybe if you just taught math and we just said like, what's the measure through line? And we like just use those as synonyms interchangeably. But I think we make it a little more difficult. Like this, these are your, what are these called there, science nerds? Literally the sidemost of your back. That is what that translates as. The sidemost of the back, latissimus. Anyway, so we like to complicate things because you can't just say sidemost of your back. Sidest, as if that's an adjective. Okay, so that's what these are called. Last syllable, almost last, and before the almost last. Ultima, penult, and penult. In this first little accent, the acute, what's special about it is it can go on any of those three syllables. Then we have our next little buddy, the circumflex. His name just means bend around. Literally, that's what his name means. And he looks like that. Or in some versions, you'll actually see him like that. It's fine. Either one's fine. So it's kind of like a font difference. So, and he's called a circumflex. Oh, acute, by the way. Come on, math nerds, acute. Oh, not small. Good. Sharp is actually what it means. Yeah, so it is a sharp little guy. So this is called a circumflex. And the circumflex can appear on any of these last two syllables. And then we have one more guy. He's our heaviest one. His name is grave or grave. Either one's fine. It comes from Latin meaning heavy. Okay, and he can only show up on the last one. Yeah, I'm a terrible dad with naming. My wife will let me have any of the fun names like Augustine or Nazianzus, Theophilus, exactly. So I had to go with rushing, which is probably a terrible thing that I named my son rushing, and grave, heavy. Yeah. But we call him gravy boat, a gravy train. So
Is it Graves with an S?
it is Graves with an S, yeah. And they're both family names, yeah. Yeah. Rushing, we're the Scottish clan of the Rushes. Anyway. All right. So that's just kind of the general, like, where do they appear? All right. Let's talk about what we do with them with verbs now. Okay? So where do they go with verbs? Now, I want you to look at your recitation, if you would. Page 2, the bottom right corner. Page 2, the bottom right corner. And this is going to get maybe a little weird. So just stay with me, okay? All right. Here's the big so what of verb accenting. Verbal accent is recessive. It is receding, which means what? What does that mean? Literally falling back, going back. Now, remember how I said you have to read it forwards and backwards? Falling back doesn't mean falling back. Falling back means falling back. Falling away from the end, another way. So here's the thing with verbal accent. It wants to get as far away from the ultima as it can. It's like, let me go. I want to get away from that ultima. Give me, go. Okay? So that's the number one rule for verbal accent, is it wants to get away from the ultima. That's right. So now we're going to talk about, well, how do you know where it goes? How do you know where it goes? So this is the first kind of sub-rule. So there's number one. Verbal accent is, recess. Doesn't matter. Good question. I'll just leave that It can never go back more than this unless it can, but we're not going to worry about that right now. Okay, so that's my way to say like, no rules right now. Okay, so how do I know how far back it can go? Here's how you know. We have to ask a question about the ultima. If the ultima is long, it is a short rope. If the ultima is short, it gets a long rope. Okay, let's talk about what that means. If the ultima is long, it gets a short rope. If the ultima is short, it gets a long rope. So if it's long, it can only run to the penult. But if it's short, it will go all the way back to the antepenult to be accented.
Can only go, or it does?
It will go because it wants to go as far away as it can go. You give it a long rope, it's running all the way back.
So would it ever be on the ultimate?
It won't. Good. Now here's your next logical question. If the last syllable is short, what accent will the verb take? How do you know that? Good. So let's look at our recitation. Somebody find me no worries, bottom page 2, bottom right corner. Find me a short ultima with a long rope and therefore an accent on the antepenult. Good. Lumen, we destroy. So let's look at the logic of that. Lu, men. Now, we know we could actually logically work it this way, right? We could say, well, this must be short because this is accented. Couldn't we work it that way? If we had the form like this. Okay. But let me ask you this question, which is probably the question in your head right now, which is, anybody asking about how I know if it's long or short? How do I know what? Oh, good. Okay, so you want to do the last one? Is that what you're saying? Lu, oo, si, like that?
So that was my question, because I was together.
Good. Why did I do it this way? It is a diphthong, which means what? Good, yeah, so it's two vowels, right, that come together to make one sound. So any diphthong you ever see is long. Okay, so if we're going to talk about long, which we're going to now have to get into, how do I know if something's long? If it's a diphthong, it's long. Unless it's final. Here's your exception. I know, sorry. There's a reason why there's literally a book on Greek accenting. I'm not going to give you the book, okay? I'm just going to give you the short version. Final I or oi is actually short. It's the one exception. Only if it's final, last thing in the word. Literally the last letters of the word.
Is there any kind of link to long and short for the vowels in English? Or is
Yes,
it
there is. So what else is long? Do you remember?
Ada?
What? Ada is long. What's short? Good. What's the other always long vowel? Omega is always long. Short would be omicron. Good. And then we have the could go either way crew. Everything else, yeah. So we've got then the long or short. Upsilon, alpha, good, and iota. And we'll always have to just use context to figure that out. And we'll build on this. This is not something to break your brain over. Okay.
Sorry, did you say omega short?
No, omega is long, but then it has a short omicron. Eta is always long. It has the short form is epsilon. Okay? All right, so now actually let's look at these two words. Now we know them in our recitation. And by the way, the reason why, this is something Rose is familiar with as a Latin teacher. we always have to be careful if we're just reciting endings because they can mess up our accenting, if that makes sense. And we're going to see why. So what we didn't do, and maybe this bothers you, and that's okay if it does, what we didn't do is we didn't say, like I said actually when I was in college, we didn't say our endings are O, ace, A, and okay. And here's why we, but no, I'm not picking on you. This is why we didn't do it.
Right.
Because we will never say amen. Because it's short. And if it's short, it gets a long rope, which means the accent will always go on the last syllable of the stem. Does that make sense? So if it was a longer stem, like say akuo, it would go akuamen. It will never go akuamen. See that? So we have to be really careful with those recitations because they can mess us up. So that's where, and again, it's not this way for every language all the time, but we have to be careful because if we're reciting it wrong every time, it's going to mess us up. Right? Does that make sense? Okay. So that's why I believe it's really better to say luo, lues, lue, luamen, luete, lucy. Because I've accented it correctly every time. Whereas, again, if I said it the other way, right, I would have to say something like this. Amen, ete, usi. And it will never be that. Right? Does that make sense? Okay. So now, pop quiz. Is this iota long or short? In lucy. How do you know that? Good. Antepenult. Good. So we can logically figure it out, and that's sure enough how we do it. So in our minds and in our souls, we start to realize, oh, this iota in the present active indicative, third person plural, they destroy, is always short. Always. And so you start to get kind of these categories as you learn the language. Oh, like that's a short iota. Always. Always, always. Baby Yoda. It's just like Baby Yoda, Rose. Let us pray. Okay, good. All right.
You can't say short Yoda without me.
All right. So, please. Absolutely. Yes. Yes. They would still go I and oi. They would never be long. Good. So probably what's going on here, and this is, it's hard because you're doing like ancient Greek, but it's probably a quarter note versus a half note, or maybe more like an eighth note versus a quarter note. So yeah, it's about quantity. Yes, yes, that's right. So it has a musicality to it. No, we don't. It is. It's truly foreign. I mean, this is why Shakespeare said it's Greek to me, not it's Latin to me. This is why you don't, I mean, seriously, like, this is why you don't start your kids with Greek. I really believe this, by the way. This is why I don't start your kids with Greek, because it is alien. Alias means just other, alien. Okay. All right, so far so good. All right-ish. Okay, we're now going to apply these rules to our English to Greek sentences. Okay, so let's do it together. We hear. Somebody give me the Greek for we hear. I'm going to try. What can I use? Let's see. I'll do this. Okay, so I heard the right ideas here. Okay, and where will the accent fall? And why? Somebody walk me through the rules. Over the diphthong, oo. Okay, and let's really walk through it. This is something that I think is really important to the souls, to all of our souls. We need to first treat it like what it is. So I really want to encourage you to say it like this. It's a verb and verbal accent is recessive. Okay? Train our minds, because when we learn noun accents here in a bit, we're going to have to train our minds with a different starting point. Okay? So it's a verb and verbal accent is recessive. So I go to the ultima, And is it short or long? It's short. Short ultima has a long rope. So burp, burp. And if I'm back at the antipenal, it must be? It's over the second letter of the diphthong. Is it an acute, a circumflex, or a grave? It's an acute. Why? It's the only option. It's just a cute little accent. Okay, we here. That, hati, good. And this is just a vocab issue, by the way. So, oops, not hata, sorry. That's just how that adverb always is. It doesn't change, it's just always hati. Hati, hati, hati. And yes, when I was in college, I giggled that it sounded like the word hati. Pray for my soul. Okay, a brother, adelphos, good. All right, and now we get our first attempt at the grave accent. At the grave accent. Here's how the grave works, is when it can only be on the last syllable, remember that? So it's got to be on the ultima. And anytime you have an acute, which is what adelphos has, anytime you have an acute final syllable, when a word follows it without any pause, this acute turns to a grave. That's it. Good. That's what the next lesson is. When you learn nouns, you must learn where the accent goes. So you must train yourself to say adelphos, not adelphos. Pardon me? It is a spelling issue. That's exactly right. It's going to always be adelphos or adelphe, and we'll see that next. Because noun accent, I'll just push this out. Noun accent is what's called retentive or persistent. It wants to stay where it is, unless you push it off of there. But again, we're going to come to that, okay? So I have to learn when I learn my noun vocabulary, it's adelphos, okay? And I was very sloppy with that when I first learned Greek, and I have to go back and unlearn it, which is much worse than learning it right the first time. Because I'm like, wait, what is that word? And this comes up all the time, right? Like, I don't know if you ever heard people say adelphos or something like this. It's not, it's adelphos. And if you get that wrong in your mind, you have to untrain it, which is pain in the butt, technical term. Okay, a brother wishes.
When it goes into English, it has the indefinite article a. Could I have picked iron? Or is there a different, like,
Good.
the definite, this is brother the time?
Greek, if it doesn't have a definite article, which it won't until like chapter 6, you can just use an indefinite article. So a. It'll just be like the. It is a different word. So it's that word actually in our recitation, ha, ta. That's the definite article. Yeah, it's el. Yeah, except for we do have like una. We do have una or an un in Spanish. What? Feminine? What? Una? Yeah, a or un. Yeah. Okay, so a brother wishes. Okay, that's our form. Oh. Where do I accent that? Okay, so it's good. It's a verb. The ultima is long, so it has a short rope. Now, here's the rule we don't know. We have one more question we have to ask. This is specifically when the accent falls on the penult. Okay. So, here's the pattern. And I always like to say the pattern this way. Sl, circumflex. That's so silly and stupid. Please forgive me. Here we go. That is to say, if it goes like this, sl, circumflex, which means what? Short, long, circumflex. Sl, circumflex. There's something in my brain that like the sl helps me with circumflex. If it doesn't work for you, I don't blame you, I blame myself. Okay, the other option that we'll see is if it goes long, long, acute. So if it goes short, long, circumflex. If it goes long, long, acute, oops, sorry, I said that wrong. If it goes, oh yeah, long, long, or long, short, sorry. Either, any other option. I had to think about that for a second. Acute. Or you could say it another way. If that ultima is long, it's taken an acute. It's only if it's short, long. And none of these are going to fit this pattern, you're going to see. Okay? And again, you can look at your recitation. Notice they're all acutes. Luo, lues, lue. You see them? They're all acutes. All acutes. So it's going to be the same thing here. It doesn't matter if it's long or if it's short. If that ultima is long, it's going to take an acute. It's only if the ultima was short, which we don't have to worry about in this chapter, in this lesson. So, belle. Belle. Because it goes long, short. Look, there's our thing. Long, short, acute. Long, short, acute. To believe. To believe. What's our form for the infinitive? To believe? Ain, good. So we've got our verb pisteuo with our infinitive ending. Okay, here we go. It's a verb, right? Is that final syllable long or short? Long or short? Long. So it has a short rope, grave, accent, or circumflex. All the diphthongs are long. So, no wait, but is that, remember we have to read it backwards. Long, long, acute. And that is a double diphthong. Ain.
What is the circumflex? Does it do a different sound?
It probably does in Greek.
Okay.
Yeah, it probably does. We're not going to worry about that though. Yeah, we're not going to do that like that. That may be what's going on. Okay. We'll do one more just for practice on verb accenting. Okay. Number 2. Do you know, and that's a you plural, I think it says. Oh, English, where we have to write you plural. Do you know? Okay. Oops. Gino. Okay, here we go. Is that a verb? Verbal accent is recessive. Go to your ultima. Short or long? Short, so long rope. What's my only accenting option? Acute. Get no skate. Good. Do you know that hati, good. And yes, hati really is this common in the New Testament. It's often interchanged with gar, but G-A-R. Do you know that they are not writing? Ooh, another tricky little helping verb in English. Are writing. So they are not writing. So we have to do the oo thing. And do we do oo, ook, or ook? Why? Because it's followed by a consonant, not a rough breather or a smooth breather or a rough breather. So, yeah. It would be ook if it had a smooth breather. It would be ook if it were a rough breather. Oops. Next. Okay. Oo what? They are not writing. Okay. So we've got our verb gruffo, and we put our third person plural ending on it. If you wanted to add a new, you totally can. You don't have to. Totally up to you. It's that movable new. Either way. Okay. Yeah, it does happen. It does happen. Okay. So here we go. Ooh. Short iota or long iota? Because that's an option, right? What's your paradigm say? Luo, lues, lue, luamen, luete, luusi. Is this a short iota or a long iota? It's a short iota, right? So that's why we have to hear that. So this is short verb is recessive, short ultima, long rope, acute on the gra. Graphusin. Again, this is the most analytical, nitty-gritty part of Greek. And again, if you're focused on reading it, it rarely comes up. Rarely. Absolutely.
For all of the present active
Yep.
do they all end up accenting on the same place?
Always.
I mean, like,
Oh.
they're not going to be because, like, I just
Yep. That's the power of like the paradigm. So it doesn't matter if it's a bisyllabic luo, blepo, gruffo, or more, akuo, ginosco. It will never come off of that because remember, only the last three can be accented. If you remember that rule. So it'll always stay just exactly where it is in our luo paradigm. So again, if you just memorize the paradigm, you know where the accent goes.
But it's on the same letter. It's on the same letter now. So I guess what I'm asking is like all of the endings seem like they have different numbers of syllables, but the accent always ends up in the same place.
Why?
That's what I mean.
Why? Think. Why does it always end up where it does? For example, if this was gruffete, why would it be on gruffete?
Oh, yeah, because the more syllable ones end up short and go back to.
Always, right. So anytime we have these polysyllabic endings, and I don't want to say them because I don't think I can say them unaccented, amen, ete, usi, they're always short ultimas. So they always have a long rope. The O and ace and A are always long, so they always have a short rope. Good. That's exactly right. Good.
This is exactly like respiratory and metabolic compensation for application. Thinking about the rules and the way that way. Anyway, don't you think? No!
You are so out of my league, Jen. I never got, well, okay. All right, let's talk about nouns. Now, I'm going to leave, no, I'm actually going to get rid of that. Okay, so the big so what of chapters 3 and 4. So if this is a brutal chapter for you, I just want you to feel like I'm normal. Just feel normal, okay? If you dare. Okay, so we're going to talk about the big idea, and then I'm going to talk about the smaller idea. No, just three. We're going to have actually 2 sessions on this because it's such a big idea. I want to soak in it. Okay, all right, here we go. So in English, we have these words. And if any of you have attended my Latin training before, you've seen me do this. If you have, please be quiet. In love. And I'll do one more. I could do this with more pronouns, but we'll just do those 3 for our time tonight. So we've got he, his, and him, who, whose, and whom, they, those, and them. What is going on here? What's the difference between he, his, and him? Or between who, whose, and whom? Or they, those, and them? Oh, no, this is wrong. Nobody corrected me on that? Slackers. It's there. I'm sorry. I apologize. I was like, that's wrong. Thank you. You said it quietly? Oh, I appreciate that. Okay, that's wrong. Sorry. They, their, and them. What's going on? Can you see? Okay, this middle one is possessive. What does that mean, Rick? That's fine. I respect that answer. Okay, somebody help Rick out. What does possessive mean? It's a bad word, isn't it? Don't be so possessive. It's like an evil one, the middle one. Good. think so. Ownership, you possess it. His house, whose house was it? Their car was lovely. Car, whatever. I'm all about cars, in case you don't know this about me. No, I'm just kidding. What else? How about he and him? Can he be a possessive? He, house is great. Who, car is nice. They, dog bit me. Does that work that way? Some organized people said, no. Good. So what is he and him? Or again, who and whom? How do those things work? What does that mean? Awesome. Great definition. So a subject, especially like in early on, right? The subject is the doer. That changes a little bit when we go from Brutus stabs Caesar to Caesar is stabbed by Brutus. But we'll keep it simple tonight. Okay, so the subject, it's totally fine. We're going to think of the subject as the doer. Once we get a little bit farther along in grammar, we're going to see if we can actually midwife out what a subject actually is. But it's fine to be there right now. Okay, so the subject for our purposes is the doer. And in English, with pronouns, we actually call this the subjective case, like briefcase. Yeah, it's actually called that. I have my grandfather's old grammar book that he had when he dropped out of school when he was in 7th grade. This was already in his 7th grade English grammar book as an ignorant farm boy. I have it. I can show it to you. He did not do well in his grammar, but I dare say his grammar was much better than mine, probably post-college. Okay, so and then you said the last option was? Objective. Good. And actually in English, if we want to get more precise, and we're going to need to for today, there are actually 3 different kinds of objects in English. For example, there's the I punch Angela. Direct object. We act directly on it. By the way, with kids, I often find physical options are the best. I don't really punch the students. I usually have Super Bunny and I toss him around. Okay, so we have a direct object. That is to say we just act directly on it. The verb, if you like physics, right, it's the thing that receives the transferred energy, right? Right? And in physics, we call that transfer or transition. In grammar, we call that transitive. Good. And also in math, don't we? Transitive property. Look at that. Okay. All right, so we could have a direct object. We could also have an indirect object. I throw the marker to Eli. He's the indirect object. I didn't throw, this is the classic, right? Did I throw Eli? No, you threw Eli the marker. So the marker is the direct object. It's what the force went to. The indirect object, the receiver. Good. The indirect object receives the direct object. If you like playing pool, it's all about indirect objects, right? All right, and then there's one more object or objective use. I went to the park with him. With whom did you go? By them. Object of a preposition. Good. Now, we're not going to have to worry about number 3 yet, okay? The object of the preposition. But one of the things that's really cool is that in Latin and in Greek and in German as well, if you've done that language, German does this not, or in Latin and Greek, do this not just for pronouns, but they do it for every substantive. Every noun and pronoun changes its case depending on its job. So I always like to think of Bruce Wayne. When Bruce Wayne is going on a date with like whatever beauty queen has come to Gotham, does he wear the bat suit? No. What does he wear? He wears a tuxedo if he's going on a date. And if he's going to work out in the bat cave to get huge, what does he wear? Workout clothes. Okay, good. And if he's going for a swim, what does he wear? Good. All right. And if he's going to fight crime, what does he wear? The bat suit. Okay, now notice, now I'm not trying to get into the psychology of Bruce Wayne here, though I am willing to have that debate anytime you want to. Is Bruce Wayne the one in every different set of clothes? Yes. But what has changed? Ooh, good. His garments have changed. Why have his garments changed? his purpose or his job has changed. I always wonder if our kids said, why do we have to dress up for church? If we said, well, the purpose is different, for example, right? Why do we have to wear uniforms? Well, what's the purpose that we want to accomplish in these things, maybe? Okay, so in Greek, these endings, where's my eraser? Here it is. That's what we're going to see for all of our nouns. So go to your recitation, page 1, the left column. The left column of page 1. We're just going to start up at the top with hehora. And you'll notice we have a 5 by 2 little table there, right? Out next to it, if you'd like, you can write down, or they're in the book, these names. The nominative, the genitive, the dative, the accusative, and the vocative. The nominative, genitive, dative, accusative, and vocative. I know. You have to break your Latin brain a little bit. Okay. All right, does anybody see any like English derivatives that kind of come through? Like scientists may see at least one. Oh, lawyers will see one. Okay, what is what do we do with accuse? Yes, you like point directly at somebody. And that's what we would put our direct object in. So when you accuse someone, you might point right at him and say, I know it was you, Jen. J'accuse. All right. Anybody see something else? Nomen, name, and this one's actually kind of cool, like nominate. Now, it literally just means naming, but it really just tells us the subject. We can think of it as it names the subject. No. Genuflect, no, that's knee. Genus, kind, good. I thought it was in here somewhere. So the genus, the of blank. And I want to encourage you to start, especially for us, start with of blank when we see something in the genitive case. Okay? The throne. Yes. Yes. So like the brother of Jesus. Don't say Jesus' brother. Just, it's a better habit to start with, is this one. It could be a possessor. It could be. But for example, it could also be a podium of wood. We wouldn't say wood's podium.
But it's always
It is.
It's the person who possesses.
It's the of, yeah. The noun in the genitive is with the of blank. Okay. Doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be. All right. Dative. I always like to talk about going on an awkward dative. And if you were going on a really awkward dative, like I cannot believe we had school dances starting in 6th grade at the public school I went to. 6th grade, which is terrifying when I think of our 6th graders, by the way. Love them to death, but holy moly. Anyway, so I always remember, I would always tell the kids, like, you know, when you get really awkward and you like ask very indirectly if you'd be interested in dancing with me. So that's what this is. This is the indirect object. And silly things like that. Put things in our brains. And last but not least, the vocative. If you evocate, it just means call on. Wacko, I call. Yeah, there it is. Okay, so in English we call this the noun of direct address. The nota. Nerds. So that's what we have in that little prayer. Jesus, son of David, have mercy on me. Yes, he is the one who is being called upon. Have mercy on me. Direct object. Accusative. Okay. So I want to look at these charts and talk to probably end our time, which is totally fine. Look at these nouns. And actually, if you would, flip to page 12. We need to do a little more logic. A little more reasoning. If you are reasonable, you will enjoy this. If you are unreasonable and reckless, you will not. All right. So we have all these nouns. Adelphe, hey. Aletheia, hey. Basileia, hey. Gay, hey. Gender. They're telling us what gender the nouns are. Quick medical distinction. What's gender versus sex? Come on, doctors. What's gender versus sex? Okay, land is feminine. Is it biologically feminine? It's grammatically feminine. Okay, so gender is... I'm not trying to be weird here. I've got medical people in the room. Then why are ships feminine? Okay. I did just see. Okay, that's just linguistically.
I can call my car a guy if I want to.
You.
My car has always been male.
That is so wrong.
In fact, if you were to look at my car, it is about male.
This, I will say, it's funny. It almost comes up. Why are these things feminine? Is it like Earth is a girl? Or glory is a girl? Right. No. What do you say? Right. Exactly. So it doesn't work, and that always is very confusing to kids. Like, they just want it to be like, well, can't like sister, mom, woman, and girl, and baby girl be feminine? And
But how come what's gender can change?
oh.
You're always
We're getting wild now. We are trying to talk about nouns, Angela.
Yeah, also your DNA.
And so that's sex, right? That's a genetic issue. Is that right? Okay. Versus here we're talking about, and we'll bring it back, right? So here we're talking about grammatical issues. Life is not feminine in some sense of like, well, only women can have life. Although it is interesting to me that wisdom and love and life are all feminine.
Yeah.
Why is the hey after it?
Yeah. Yeah. So in the dictionary they just list it second.
But you don't quote that.
You'd say, hey, phone A. Yeah.
Alphabetize it by the
You alphabetize, that's right. Yeah, because if you alphabetize it by the hey or the ha or the ta, you'd have like a billion hey blanks. Yeah. So that's why it comes after. Good. Because when we see it, it'll always come before it. Like, hey Adelphe is the sister. Yeah. It is. It's the article. Yeah. That's right. Just like it is in Spanish. Okay. All right. So the last kind of tricky thing, and I want to try to do, we'll have enough time for at least one sentence, which is important. There are these three categories, and this is tricky, okay? So we can just kind of own that. On the left side of page 1, we have that first declension feminine pure alpha, first declension feminine pure eta, and first declension feminine mixed. I want to see if any of y'all can tell me how I know which noun belongs to which declension.
Well, the alpha, you have to look.
Okay, so pause for just a second. So if I'm understanding you right, Rose, you're saying phone A ends in an eta. Hey, phone A. Then this must be a first declension feminine pure eta. Let's check that. So what are our nouns in this vocab on page 12 that are pure eta nouns, that end in eta? Adelphe, gay, zoe, phone. That's how you spotted them so quickly. I was really impressed. Okay. So yes, so that's one way we could say is, hey, if it ends in an eta, it's got to be a pure eta. Now, can anybody logically tell me actually how we arrive at that conclusion? Why couldn't that be a pure alpha or a mixed? Okay. So in our chart, in this nominative singular box, right, top row, I could have either an alpha or an eta. Is that right? On all three of those, is that the only option for the end? Alpha or eta? Good, and that's fine. These are all the examples. Good. So that's it. And so if it ends in an eta, then I know it has to be that pure eta. It's going to go a, ace, a, ain, a, I, own, ice, us, I. Okay? So then our real question is, okay, so how do I know if I see a word, for example, hehora, it ends in an alpha? Or if I see a word like doxa. Oops, my C got out of control. How do I know what these are? Okay, so that's why that's in the recitation, by the way, is when it's a pure alpha, it says row or vowel. So hora, is that a row or a vowel?
Yeah.
It is, hora. So this row tells me pure alpha. How about doxa? Is that a row or a vowel? No, it's not. It's a xi. This xi tells me it's a mixed. That is, what does mixed mean? Good, yeah, so it goes doxa, doxase, doxe, doxon, doxa. Okay. So let's go through that whole vocab list and let's just check our eyes. Check our eyes. Just give 1 second before you answer. Let's say for each one which declension it is. Is it a pure alpha, row or vowel? Is it a pure eta, or is it a mixed? So here we go. Adelphe. What is that? Pure eta. How do we know? Ends in an eta is the only option, right? Okay. Aletheia. Aletheia. How do you know pure alpha? It does. It's a diphthong, that's right. Now, let's even dig a little deeper. Is that final A, oops, I erased them over here. Is that final alpha long or short? Is short always? It is not. It's one of our either ways. Good. It has the option to go all the way back. So it must be short. Now we're going to talk about that. Hold on. We're going to talk about that sub rule next time. I want to major on the majors. Okay? So we'll talk about that sub rule. It wants to stay if it can. It wants to say, I like to think of it's okay, I think of my accents like people. It wants to stay there. It's your beloved grandmother who doesn't want to move if she doesn't have to. It will if she has to, but she doesn't want to. Okay, basileia. Basileia. What declension? Pure eta, pure alpha, or mixed? Pure alpha. How do you know that? Good. Gay. Oh, sorry. Gay. Hey, gay. Pure eta. How do you know? It ends in an eta. Yeah, no, I mean, it's really important logically to keep, repetition's the mother of memory. Okay, doxa. Mixed. Why? Okay, it's our paradigm, and yeah. But yeah, we could say not row or vowel. Not row or vowel. Ecclesia. Ecclesia. How do you know? Vowel, iota, good. Ecclesia. All right. Echo, pure alpha, pure eta, or mixed? Why? Good, it's a verb. Oh, I tried to trick you. Good. Parts of speech always comes back first. If it's a verb, darn it. I really wanted a wrong answer there. Sometimes I want them. All right, Zoe, his A. Pure eta, how do we know? There's an eta at the end, good. Hemera. Pure alpha, Y? Row or vowel, good. Hemera. Okay, thalassa. Mixed, it is. There's a consonant that's not a rho before that alpha. The Thalassic era? Oh. C. Oh, it's a your kids aren't into dinosaurs nearly enough, Rick. Yeah, it's all over. It's there. Cardia. It is, and there's that iota before it. Phone and hora. Good. All right, let's do a sentence together. I'm just going to reiterate something. I think this is the hardest chapter, depending on how fluent you are with this idea. I know some of you have done some Greek, some of you have done some Latin. Okay? The more you're familiar with this idea, the better this will feel. If it's been a while or never, this is a hard chapter. Don't quit. Don't quit. I'm trying to be Jesus here. Have I told you it would be so? Have I not told you? Okay, so here we go. Number one, it's all about what clothes the noun is wearing. What clothes is it wearing? Make it do its job. This is something we say all the time. One job. Make it do its job. All right, number one. I'll write it up on the board. And I'm actually going to show you how we would do this with third grade students. Not in Greek, but just in Latin. Because we want to make, there's a book that's worth its gold, worth its salt, just for its title, which is Making Thinking Visible. So what we want to do is we want to make our thinking visible. This is like the number one thing that's frustrating sometimes, right, as a teacher, is you want to know, what were you thinking? How did you get that answer? And so showing your work is not about being mean. It's about helping us see. All right. What's going on? Okay. I'm copying it down. Aku, amen. Let's see if I copied that correctly. Phone in Aletheos. All right. Okay. All right. Let's, so I've seen teachers who have a problem with this method. That's fine. If you're ever stuck and you don't know where to start your puzzle, if you're building a puzzle, where do you start your puzzle? The edges. Okay. If you're starting a language puzzle, start with your verb. When in doubt, start with your verb. It's got to be there somewhere. Subjects don't have to be there, by the way. Right? We saw that last chapter. We could see like blepomen, we see. Okay, so we've got our verb is ekomen, we have. So there's my verb, and if I want to get kind of real nice, I would say this is a first person plural, present active indicative verb. There's another one, where? Akumen. All right, here's another one, another amen. And by the way, I'm underlining the endings, right? That's what I want to see. Good, so we've got a compound verb. We have and, or presumably and, we haven't said we have an and, but since we have two verbs, first plural. Oh, Kai is and, so there's my conjunction. So I've got compound verbs. Compound just means put together, component. All right, what else? Now we've got our verbs, and notice we've got our basic structure. We have and we hear. And that's important. We kind of feel like we're getting somewhere. We got that outside of the puzzle gut. Yes. There can be.
Really? What could it be?
We. Actually, we just saw one in Cicero. It said, I, as tribune,
So it could be like
came.
a pronoun for
It could. Or it could be in a positive noun. Consul ve nissem. I came as consul.
They shouldn't look for like some other
Right.
third and fourth.
Very. Right. Yeah, it won't be there in third and fourth grade. That is true. All right, so does anybody see something else, or you think you see something else? Doxase? Doxase? Okay, what do you think this is? Okay, it comes from the noun glory, doxa. Okay, how did you know genitive? Okay, we see this ace, and is that genitive singular or plural? Good, genitive singular. So it's something of glory. Okay, basileon. Okay, so.
I'm just deleted.
Okay, this is actually where we get the word like basilica. So what's our ending? Good. So it means kingdom. What's our ending? Accusative singular. If it's an accusative singular, what's its job? To receive the action. So can anybody put together our first clause? We have a kingdom of glory. We have a kingdom of glory. And, all right, and now we've got two more. We've got phonane, and aletheos. Aletheos is the trickiest one. Not just because my final sigma was a mess. Phonane. Okay, let's pause. Let's look at that. So actually, let's even be, it could be the accusative plural for anything, couldn't it?
Yeah.
Or the genitive singular,
If you know the dictionary formula, you want it to be
pure
pure alpha.
alpha. That's okay. Okay. So is aletheos a pure alpha since you decided to tackle it first? It is. It's a rho or vowel. So this is what I always tell the students. The man or woman with the most options wins. It's just like prom. You need to know if you have options. But then, just like prom, you're going to have to pick. You can't go with both. But it's really important that you know you've got multiple options, right? Because you don't want to lock in on the genitive singular if it could also be an accusative plural. You just need to leave it open. This is the art of kings. The art of kings is discerning the paths, reflecting and weighing, choosing and acting. That's what Homer taught me. Yes? How do you know? Or do you know that?
I know it because I just looked.
Okay, good. That's exactly right. By the way, that's your big homework assignment for this, is to know these charts. So this has to be an accusative singular.
So the other one, because it can be, the other has to be done.
That is the overwhelmingly more likely option. That's right. That's right. So if it was something like, I love my sister and my brother, right? Double accusative, double direct object. Good, and we hear a voice of truth. You have to remember these sentences are always like these Jack and Jill kind of sentences, you know, like, I like to walk and see a park. You're like, this isn't changing my soul at all. I don't feel anywhere. But even then, I would still say it is, because we're learning to attend to things. So I think that matters. I think that matters. They don't like that? Oh, well, I say that to them all the time. That's the real issue. All right, well, we need to pause there. So the good news is, and what I want you to do for next time, is do the practice and review, the Septuagint and the New Testament. And then next time, just like we did this time, we'll go over any questions, and then we'll go over the accenting rules. And it is right, I would say, to keep the accenting rules later in your mind, because they're not the main thing, okay? The main thing, learn your vocab, learn your declensions, okay? That's just the chart. They're just called declensions. Like a recliner, these are duckliners. Learn that left side. Translate your sentences. It's tricky. Absolutely, I will. I'll keep sending you the videos. I want to give you enough time before I send out the incorrect answer key to make sure you do it. I won't do it the day of. I'll try to like set it out on Friday so you have a little more time to check yourself. But I have a hunch that if I send something out like tonight, you won't wrestle enough with it in love, you know what I mean? And it's only by wrestling that you get the blessing. That's what Jacob taught me. All right, see y'all. Thank you so much.